Welcome back, everyone. This is Austin Reville on our From the Vault series with 2FBC Tactical, featuring unique and historical firearms that we have coming through our shop or our personal collection. We have another one from you, or for you today, I should say, from the frozen tundra up here in Minnesota. Here in December, it's cold outside, and as a southerner, I will never quit complaining about that. With that being said, today let's dive into a gun that really doesn't need any introductions. We have before us an obvious AR-15 variant. This is a Colt SP1. In fact, this one is from 1973, so this is an early production Colt SP1. This is a semi-auto version. We actually got this from a local law enforcement. We had to restore it a little bit back, get the flash hider and the triangle foregrip, as this had been upgraded to an A2 variant in its lifetime to meet modern service requirements when it was served. But with that being said, let's take a look at this thing. This is an iconic weapon system. From previous videos, we've done World War II, World War I guns. This is kind of the first quote-unquote modern gun that we will have done, other than, say, our M7 and SCAR 17 comparison video, which, you know, kind of was its own thing, and we're going to start an actual review side, and that's not going to be on our From the Vault side, if you will. This gun has a very interesting history. So when we talk about what is the AR-15 or the M16, M16A1, A2, A3, we're on the M4 now. The various manufacturers being Armalite, the original designer with Eugene Stoner with the AR-10 and the AR-15, that being sold to Colt in, was it 1959, and went into production due just to financial and manpower problems at Armalite. Obviously, we will see H&R, Harrison Richardson, make this, and today pretty much anyone who has a gun, or anyone who's a gun maker, makes a version of this. Ironically, Colt really doesn't anymore. They've gotten completely out of the AR-15 game. So with that being said, it's not necessarily a unique firearm. If you've watched, say, Platoon or any other Vietnam-era movie, this particular outline would look right at home in it. This is exactly what you would expect to see. This does feature the standard of at the time, I should say, Colt 20-round magazine. In fact, this is an actual Colt magazine in there. These guns really came out of necessity and desperation, and that's kind of where this comes into play. So let's just back up to 1950 America. We are in Korea. World War I has ended. We are in Korea all the way up to 1955, and we are facing off against the Japanese. We've already faced across the Japanese, but in the 1950s, the Koreans and the Chinese. They're featuring Chinese and Russian-based firearm platforms, a la the AK-47 is starting to make appearances. Obviously, we would see various variants of that. You know, we have, you know, this is a Stava, just a representation. This is what the other side would be seeing. Of course, there's Type 57, Type 56, and various designations to the AK variants out there by different countries. We'd also see the SKS. This is a Russian SKS. Yes, we will do a From the Vault series on this one. So we're seeing all these different types of firearms make an appearance in the field. While the United States at this particular time is predominantly using the M1 Grand or Garand. That was our main battle rifle of World War II. It's getting a little long in the tooth on the modern battlefield. 8-round internal magazine, where the SKS has 10 rounds internal magazine. And of course the AK variants have detachable 30-round magazines. We are still firing full battle rifle cartridge rounds at 30-06, and we would continue to do that all the way through Korea, while we're seeing a shift on the other side, the red side, if you will, to 30 cal 7.62 by 39 caliber weapon systems. In comes the Vietnam era. Now, this starts a lot earlier than we would think of it. We would be sending military advisors over to Vietnam during Eisenhower, actually, in the late 1950s. To assist in what was French Indochina at the time, and the uprising of communism in North Vietnam that was starting to integrate down to South Vietnam. we would have already put out a request for a new weapon system after World War II, and I don't have an M14 here, but ultimately the M14 would be selected, which is really an updated M1 Garand in a lot of ways. It is a wood encased stock system. Semi-automatic and select fire versions were made of the M14. They were chambered in 30-06. They featured a detachable magazine. I actually had one in the shop for a customer that we're doing a cleaning on today. And when you look at the op rod and all the, or I should say the operation rod, the operation mechanism working the bolt and all, it is almost identical to an M1 Garand. Because it is very much just an updated, modernized version of that weapons platform. That would be implemented by the United States, much to the chagrin of FN, because the FAL would have been in trials at that time. This is a Israeli FAL, but you know, the FAL will go into production, and it would be submitted for military trials in the mid to late 1950s. We would originally request to be rechambered. It was in 280 British at the time to 308, and we would ultimately keep the 308 round, despite the fact that the FN went back and redesigned it for the 308 cartridge. We would reject it over an American-made Springfield Armory M14. U.S. Army procurement has no flaws, of course, and we would choose the M14, which would see service life of like 5 years. It's one of the shortest served military weapon systems ever implemented. Because in Vietnam, we ran into some problems. So the average grunt would carry around 220 rounds for their M14 service weapon. And the full auto version of it was virtually uncontrollable. And the early reports coming back from Vietnam is like, this weapon system, not only does the wood swell in the heat, humidity, and wet environment of the jungle, it's uncontrollable for our troops. And the enemy on the other side, the Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese Army, featuring SKSs and AK-47 rifles, have immense fire superiority over us, despite the fact we're shooting a quote-unquote larger cartridge, full battle rifle cartridge, full-length cartridge, because they could carry more ammo and fire more controllably and faster than us. They had fire superiority over the United States. So we go back to the drawing board and go like, well, hang on, we need a new battle rifle and we kind of need it quick. This is where John F. Kennedy would kind of come into play, and Robert McNamara. I do not have a very high opinion of Robert McNamara personally. When you look at some of his decision-making, it is dubious at best, and not always, in my opinion, with the best interest of the soldier in mind. While some of his ideas were definitely forward-thinking, unfortunately, it was too far thinking in the future for weapons platforms that were not ready at the time. Think missile systems versus guns, and then obviously there's some serious issues with the rules of engagement in Vietnam. They would ultimately end up in that conflict becoming bogged down and becoming the albatross it would become. They would cost Lyndon Baines Johnson his presidency and kind of mire Nixon in turmoil until, of course, Watergate. And we're still kind of paying some of the penance for Vietnam to this day. We won't get into the righteousness or ills of the United States in that conflict, but out of that conflict, this particular platform is born. So going into 1959, 1960, we started looking around saying we need a more controllable battle rifle or rifle platform that can perform equal to, or at least on par with, the AK-47 on the other side. So Eugene Stoner at Armorlight comes up with this platform, originally in the AR-10, which was a 308 variant, and that was a piston-driven system. This is a gas-driven system. So there are some differences. He would rework and scale down his AR-10 to satisfy military trials. This particular variant was born out of the need of lightweight rifles. So basically everything that could be polymer or plastic was plastic. You got the stock, you got the foregrip, you got pencil thin barrels. This particular early variants do not feature a charging handle on the side, or excuse me, not charging handle, a forward assist on the side. This is done intentionally. These are extremely light. In fact, I have regular AR-15s over here that weigh almost double what this rifle weighs. Designed to shoot that 223 5.56 caliber cartridge, 55 grain bullet at the time, with a recoil buffer system in the stock. This was all done to lighten up the rifle. In full auto, I do have a full auto M16 variant. It's a modern production, so it isn't a period gun. They're extremely controllable, and with the fact that your average grunt could carry 670 rounds versus the 220 of the M14, gives you the ability to have fire superiority over your enemy. And that's really where this gun would come into play. There were many problems, of course, in Vietnam. There was the general distrust of the weapon system by higher-ups, and that ended up with trials that kept coming back saying the M14 was superior when that wasn't necessarily the case. And an inspector general actually looked at it and found out that there was bias in the testing of these guns. When it came to the caliber, one of the requirements was the 5.56 cartridge had to puncture an M2 helmet at 500 yards and maintain beyond the speed of sound velocity. It did do it. The testing of this gun is very interesting, and some of it's just because this isn't a fully flushed out project at this particular time. The AR-10 featured many differences. There's no charging handle on this. There would be one added up here inside the carrying handle at one point to assist with jams. Of course, the forward assist would be added to allow you to force the bolt home if for whatever reason it doesn't fully close. Eugene Stoner hated all those additions. This is what he actually had envisioned. His thought when it came to the forward assist, for instance, was if the bolt's not closing, there's a reason why it's not closing, and you forcing it home is not fixing the internal problem. And he's not necessarily wrong about that. Now, the ammunition wasn't always the best that we were using. The gas system wasn't always worked out. Sometimes it was also just the environment. The guns have not been fully fleshed out, which is why the modern versions are much heavier. They're a little bit more robust in build. Obviously, these have not reached the full modular systems that we see today. You don't have the ability to mount anything. That's why if you ever watch like Predator, for instance, the movie, there's a very different foregrip on the rifle that Arnold Schwarzenegger would use. He's using an M16A2, but it would have that all metal vented covering, a heat shield, so you could mount the M203 grenade launcher underneath it. Now, that would not be a mountable system in Vietnam when these rifles are made. That would come later. The M79 or the Thumper would be a it would be an M203, if you will. It's a grenade launcher at distance that's handheld, but it was its own weapons platform separate from the gun, where it was later added to as an M16 attachment. So we don't see the fully flushed out modern ability of this, but when you hold one of these things, just how light it is, it really does speak to what Eugene Stoner was attempting. This is why you see the What Would Stoner Do rifles, which are featuring all polymer receivers, pencil thin barrels, carbon fiber barrels. I have a friend that has one. They're extremely light. They're trying to keep in line with what Eugene Stoner was trying to accomplish, which was shedding weight while maintaining accuracy and controllability and increasing the amount of ammo that you could carry as a grunt. Now, one of the reasons why they ended up going with these 20-round magazines was just because of the unreliability of the 30-round curved magazines. We unfortunately had not worked that out yet at this point. It is interesting that the Russians, of course, were able to figure that out. Obviously, rocking Bakelite stuff just like this, or even metal mags. It is interesting how that works out, but the United States struggled with that for a period of time. We would ultimately see the CAR-15 make an appearance, though, where you were starting to see that 30-round magazine and modern features come into play. Now, while this is not necessarily a real CAR-15, I built a clone, sort of, in the sense that this carrying handle would be formed into the receiver, just like this one would be, where this is one of those screw-on detachable ones. But this is a CAR-15 clone that I have built here, a select fire post sample, featuring a minimalistic stock, CAR 15 just stands for Colt Automatic Rifle. This does feature an actual XM177 muzzle device on it, which the purpose of this is to modify the sound to be more in line with, say, like an AK. It actually doesn't decrease the sound, it increases it. The whole idea behind it was, hey, let's confuse the enemy in the jungle where they can't tell who's who is shooting at them. So you couldn't hone in on the sound of M16 shooting if you're a Viet Cong or North Vietnamese guy. These unfortunately are classified as suppressors on the civilian market now, so therefore it is still a tax stampable item. This is a real one. We were very fortunate to get one. And we're just trying to build this car clone, and eventually I do plan on getting the full build out with the molded upper, maybe even getting a real Colt upper at some point to do this. But anyway, we're seeing kind of in the early years the differences. This is a much shorter 10.5-inch barrel shrunk down version of the M16, featuring the 16-inch barrel, so on and so forth. But these guns would serve actually fairly admirably by the end of Vietnam, and they actually ended up becoming beloved by the troops in the field by the end of the war. And when it comes to the M16 versus the AK-47 argument, and of course there's people on both sides. Truthfully, they both serve they've served their countries respectively with honor and with legacy. And what I mean by that is the AK-47 has gone through many iterations. We're on the fifth generation of that weapon system, and what you're seeing the Russians deploy in Ukraine with is quite advanced, featuring modular rail systems, along with your lasers and modern lasers and optic systems. It does take grenade launchers, of course, and while it's gone through iterations throughout the years, the core principle of the operating system hasn't changed. When it comes to the M16 or the SP1, like this one is, I wish I had a real M16, but this is a 1973 Colt SP1. It does say Colt AR-15 right on there. Very, very cool piece of history. But these have served, obviously, the United States military well in multiple conflicts, going from Vietnam all the way up through Grenada, of course, Panama, Desert Storm 1, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, of course, that'd be Afghanistan, and that would be Iraq in 2003. It would serve through various smaller conflicts and around the world in militaries. And then we see modern updates of it. The HK 416, which is a piston-driven system, which is just really a AR-10, AR-15 clone. We would see FN take over the actual M4 platform and production and distribution in the military in I believe that was 2004, 2005. And Colt would ultimately lose the contract to produce these things as we move to the FN M4s. And of course, now SIG's coming out with the M7 rifle or the MCX Spear to replace even the M4. So we are moving away from the AR-15 platform. That is true. The Spear is a different system. It is a different platform that does feature some AR-15 controls and aesthetics, which I do think kind of speaks to the longevity of this platform. You're seeing the operating system, the gas system, you're seeing the general controls, even the forward assist that would be added later. All that is being implemented in modern sporting rifles moving forward to this day and probably for all time. So in some ways, while we are moving away from the actual M16, its legacy is enduring well on into the future. When it comes to the 1960s as this being implemented, there was a bit of a battle between the Air Force and the Army. The Army was insistent on getting that forward assist, where the Air Force was really hesitant to do so. So that in this case, this would be like a quote-unquote Air Force variant, if you would, by this time. However, this was obviously a civilian. Actually, this was in law enforcement stores. This was actually bought directly from Colt for law enforcement here in Minnesota. But that is what you're seeing. There are some differences from a modern AR. The barrel's a lot thinner, a lot lighter. It can't take the heavy grain weights like you could in a modern one. The front pen is an actual screw as opposed to a pop-out pen. So you can't just separate the upper from the lower quite like you can in the modern one with just popping two pens. But other than that, there's really no major differences between this and the modern AR-15s, M16, 3s, M4s, so on and so forth. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. I don't really mention it that often, but the Patreon, we do have one. We do appreciate anyone who is willing to subscribe to that. While we're not here to, get rich off these videos, it helps procure, yes, the firearms themselves, but also the equipment that we use. It does all cost money, so we do appreciate everyone who subscribes. But just strictly from our YouTube channel, thank you so much. We've had an explosion of subscribers. We've hit over 5,000. It's really awesome to see that. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And we really enjoy doing this. So we can't wait to do more. And then show off our new facility as we move into it in Q1 of 2025. We'll have a new studio. And we can't wait to do that. We're also going to be getting into more podcasts. And again, can't wait to do that. Can't wait to bring it to you. We'll have some guests. And we're starting to branch out on our own channel with our shorts. Please check those out. We're having a lot of fun making them, the skits and stuff like that. We're going to continue to do so. We're also very much enjoying doing some of the shorts of these videos, but we're going to start doing some updates and stuff. And when it comes to our website, I do hope you check us out. We are starting to do blog posts that are written histories on each one of these as they come out, and we again really appreciate it. Until next time.